You're listening to the Productive Therapist Podcast, the world's greatest and most brilliant resource for busy therapists who'd rather be laying on a beach in Hawaii. Each episode is packed with simple tips and inspiring insights from the Productive Therapist team to help you grow your practice and have fun doing it. So without further ado, let's help you get more done and have more fun.
Hello, welcome back to the podcast. This is Uriah. So glad you're here. Today, I got to talk to Berit Elizabeth, someone that I met last year who's amazing. She's actually the CEO and founder of PracticeAxis, which is a HIPAA-compliant CRM, which stands for Client Relationship Manager. PracticeAxis is designed to streamline the intake process at mental health practices to increase access to care while also giving practice owners the business insights they need to scale. PracticeAxis was born out of necessity when Berit realized that there was no client relationship system that was conducive to the sensitive nature of a mental health care workflow. With a passion for emotional wellness and 15 years of business development experience as director of operations of fitness franchises, a financial sales trainer, and a scale consultant, Berit became determined to develop a tool to help group practices to thrive. This was a fun conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. Also, quick note, we have a new free resource called the Magic Call Script that can help you get more clients into your therapy practice. You can use it yourself or you can give it to your intake coordinator, and it's completely free. Check it out at productivetherapist.com/magic. Enjoy the episode. Berit, welcome to the Productive Therapist Podcast.
Thanks, Uriah. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's so awesome to talk to you again. The cool thing is that when we met in person for the first time, which is kind of rare these days.
Yeah, we did, which was great. In Kentucky,
awesome.
I think it was.
It was.
Yeah.
And we just kind of hit the ground running with the conversation about all the things that we're interested in.
I think you're like one of those people that like we knew each other before we met each other, or like we think so similarly that it felt like that from the time we were talking. For me, at least, it did. Yeah.
Synchronicity. Absolutely. So I'm genuinely excited to talk to you about CRM software today. It's talking about software and playing with software is one of my favorite things. And I think this is something that you love to talk about too. So I think it will be really fun.
Yes, 100%.
Yes.
So CRM it stands for Client Relationship Management. And it's just so interesting to me because the nature of what therapists do, the treatment itself is a relationship. Right. So this is like CRM, the acronym gets thrown around a lot in the software world, but it resonates so well with me when it comes to thinking about it in terms of the mental health field.
Absolutely. So before we get into that, I would love for my audience to hear a little bit about you, your story, and what you've been up to the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, I have always had a very deep interest in mental health. I love therapists, but not just because they're awesome, fun people who really empathize and understand me. But throughout my life, I actually in my earlier life, had nearly lost more than one of the most important people of my life due to mental health struggles. But the reason I say nearly is because I saw firsthand how literally one relationship with a therapist could make all the difference. So in my academic background, I have a master's of social psychology and theater. So nothing to do with software back in the day. And I was really intrigued by the healing powers of theater. And I ended up writing my master's thesis on one specific theater technique. And I wanted to help people use that technique to manage their emotions. And I called that emotive agility. But coming out of grad school for the next 15 years, I did a lot of coaching on my technique through theater. However, my bread and butter, my professional experience was entirely in sales. And looping back to a CRM is traditionally a sales tool. There's not a single industry that doesn't use a CRM to sell what they are doing or to develop their business. So I hopped right into the fitness world. I had my own personal training studio, but then became the national director of sales and operations for 6 fitness franchises across the country. I did that for about 8 to 10 years. So lots of sales. I was a financial sales trainer. I sold advertising through the LA Times, the real estate world even, but
wow.
Up at 2021, when a lot of us this brings me to that point where the great exit, I don't know what they called it, but when everyone quit their job because they wanted to really fulfill their purpose. Well, that included me. And I really felt like I quit all my sales jobs that were killing my soul. And I said, who do I want to help? Like now that I understand business development, I understand sales conversion and business practices, who do I want to help? And it was therapists. So it was around that time in 2021 that I started PracticeAxis.
That's such
Kind
a
of
cool
zigzag
story.
journey.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to see how a career develops. Like some people's path is very linear. They're like in high school or elementary school, they're like, I'm going to be a doctor, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're a doctor. But I think most of us go in a different path. I have to ask you the question, like, so how did you land on social psychology and theater, and how did you combine those things? Real quick, I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah, thank you for asking. I was so intrigued with this a theater technique that specifically because it wasn't mental, it was physical. And it was all about how your physical emotion, physical body can impact your own emotions from the outside in. So I thought this is personal development. This shouldn't just be to create performances for actors. Like this should be something that people who are not theater people, which is like most of the population is not a theater kid, right? Or an actor, they should have access to these skills. So I took a theater technique and originally Grotowski was the inspiration, modified it to teach emotional intelligence skills. There was a drama therapy department at NYU, but I didn't become a drama therapist by chance. They allowed me to blend the two disciplines and create a degree out of that. So
Look at
how
you,
I
always
ended up
making
as an
your own
entrepreneur.
path, making your own path.
No linear academic path
Well, you're
whatsoever. But
clearly
yeah.
the kind of person that looks for a problem and tries to find a solution and put those two things together wherever you land. So I think that's awesome, and I'm so thrilled that you landed in supporting the mental health community with all the skills and experience that you've acquired. That's so fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is a random question, but when you talked about fitness and gyms and all of that, and you talked about sales, I just have to ask you: do you know who Alex Hormozy is? And if so, yes, no? No. Okay.
Should I? Oh no.
No, it's
I'm
okay. No, it's
Googling
okay.
right
It's
now.
just a person that I've found recently in the last year and started following. And he's a guy who's like a serial entrepreneur, and you can Google him, but he had, I think his business was called Gymshark. So he basically coached gym owners to grow their gyms. And then he talks a lot about sales and ideal life. And he's like an entrepreneur guy. He's really got some great YouTube videos. So yes.
No, but I don't know him, but I have been a follower of how to grow your personal training studio. And it is
Sure.
wild, the parallel between group practices and personal training
Interesting.
studios.
I imagine.
From a strictly business perspective, a
Right.
strictly business structure.
Right.
Like the person is coming, well, I can get into it, but you have to exchange time and space for money. It's
Yeah.
service based. Like, yeah, there's a great parallel. So I followed gurus like that. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So let's get into it. Like for the people listening to this, some folks will know already what a CRM means because we like acronyms, EHR, CBT, etc. But a lot of people won't know what a CRM is. So what is CRM software and how is it used?
Okay, so a CRM, as I mentioned, stands for Client Relationship Management. But what the software is designed to do is to be a database, a repository for all potential clients, and to track the path from the time a client inquires, from the time you make contact with a client from the time you make contact with a prospective client and to the time that they become a closed client. So closed meaning like closed a deal. So a CRM in the sales context is traditionally a sales tool, is a software to track the stages that a lead or prospect goes through on their way to becoming your client. And that means credit card swiped, bill paid, agreement signed, whatever becoming a client means in a sales context.
Okay, perfect.
So within a CRM, there's pathways, right? There's a pipeline within a CRM. So within a CRM, you can automate emails, text messages, tasks. So it's an administrative tool for salespeople originally, to keep track of who who they're closing, the deals that they're closing. I hesitate because I hate to use the word deals in the context of mental health.
Right.
And a CRM is also a repository for all your marketing efforts. So digital marketing, leads, it's capturing leads, and then it's tracking the process, automating communication, and then being able to give you reports and insights on the status of how many converted to clients.
Yeah, it's a powerful tool for sure. And correct me if I'm wrong, but every business, specifically every service-based business, has stages that their new or potential and new clients go through, whether or not they're written down, documented, or actually like manually, moved through a process, right? So if somebody doesn't have a CRM, they still have all of those processes and stages. They just don't maybe have them organized and a way to keep track of them and monitor it. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. I would say that is, yeah, absolutely true. Those processes are already there. So this is a digital version of those processes. Yeah.
And it also
It
makes it
allows you
visual.
to,
That's one of my favorite things.
oh,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Actually, what drove me nuts was that EHRs did not already have this. I went, PracticeAxis was born while I was doing a process. I was a process consultant for a group practice that wanted to scale from 10 to 20 therapists. So I said, okay, hang on, you're turning away 50% of the people who are calling in. Maybe there's very legitimate reasons like availability or clinical need. We just don't know why. And there's a lot of availability on the client's calendar. Don't worry, I'll just get you a CRM, because it came so naturally as a sales tool. So then I didn't go look for a CRM. I went to look for an EHR to find which one had CRM capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And there
Because it must exist, right?
Yes, it must exist. And because that visual, like you said, I know you appreciate geeky versions of technology, but like the visual is so important to me as well. Like what stage is this of my company's process or my practice's process? What stage is this person in? Imagine if you're tracking like 400 a month, and even if you're not, it's hard to visualize or keep in your head.
Gosh, you know what I've realized over the last 5-6 years of running Productive Therapist and helping hundreds of practices is that it gets really complex. There's actually a lot of steps and stages. It's probably easier to bring in gym clients, I would imagine, than it is, therapy clients to a group practice. Because some of us make it more complex than it needs to be, but there are potentially a lot of different steps to follow, aren't there?
100%. Yeah, it is. That's why a traditional CRM wouldn't work for a mental health practice. That's one of the reasons. Most pathways or pipelines in a CRM are just a few steps.
Mm-hmm.
Like client called, we told client the pricing, client came in for a consultation. We sent an agreement, client signed it or did not, and it's over. Maybe that's
5 stages.
That's a medium-sized one. Yeah. It's unbelievable the zigzagging that has to go on. And also I'm in awe of the different intake teams that I see. It's unbelievable the numerous steps because of the insurance factor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing that there are intake teams that every single intake coordinator that I meet, is just holding so much in her head. It's unbelievable. And all the different steps that happen when you have to check insurance, get paperwork signed. What if there's 2 parents that need to sign the paperwork, and one has and one hasn't? What if someone can't log into the portal? So that's not an overstatement to say there are just so many additional steps.
Yeah.
Just on the way to the intake session. It's such a journey.
It really is. I actually covered our intake line for just a couple days over the holidays, and I was almost immediately stressed out. And there were a couple calls that came in that were kind of they were complex in nature, the needs of those particular clients. But I know when my intake coordinator came back, I said, "Thank you so much again for everything you do and how well you do it and so consistently because it's not an easy job. It really isn't." So CRM will absolutely make the job of an intake coordinator much easier, or even a solo practice owner for that matter. Anybody who's handling that job of taking those initial calls or inquiries and trying to get those folks into the practice. So you talked a little bit about why regular sales CRMs don't work for mental health practices. That makes a lot of sense, at least to me. I'm a longtime user of Active Campaign, and it's really good for productive therapists, but it's actually pretty limited, and it's not designed for a therapy practice by any means. So talking about the complexity of the intake process, I'm curious, what are some of the biggest inefficiencies that you've seen when you've kind of gotten the behind the scenes look at someone's intake process?
Yeah, I think it's no secret. I think it's the typing and retyping of emails, number one.
Mm-hmm,
I think most intake coordinators would say I'm retyping, I'm copying and pasting email templates of things that I typically need to send out to every client. And then maybe even a close second, if not ahead of that, is the phone tag and tracking who they followed
mm-hmm,
up with, who they haven't followed up with. And the intake teams at group practices typically might include a few part-time people. There might be one full-time intake coordinator, but also an operations manager. There's almost always a biller. So that coordinating that communication of what's the last communication that went out to a client when someone else is coming in on you email the client on Wednesday, and then I'm coming in because my shift is on Friday, or I'm filling in for you. Where do we see a CRM can give you the history of that communication so that the baton could be passed, so to
mm-hmm.
speak. And in a traditional CRM, because it's a sales tool, nobody wants that collaboration because they're all working on commission to close deals.
That makes sense.
And that's why it's so hard to contort a CRM for mental health practices, because they're actually set up for like one person to own that experience with that client and get them to a deal, and it's just not the case in mental health practices. So it's nice to be able to track if you want to see if you want to assign one person to that client, but it might just be for organizational purposes, because it wouldn't be, there's a lot more collaboration that needs to go on in the clinical stages.
Sure. No, those things make
Did I answer
make a
your
lot
question?
of sense. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. So like the manual steps of the process just with communication. And usually those things are relatively similar for every client, but there's always some variability, right? But there's parts of that can be either automated or at least templated for sure. And yeah, phone tag I think is the bane of our existence for sure, because most practices don't have live answer. Some try for sure, but a lot of us don't. And so trying to get in touch with the client and kind of, like you said, walk them through to being a closed deal. Yeah, I don't like using that language either.
I never use that language.
Getting them to the help they need. How about that?
Yeah, I like to say, converting them to a client, or
Right.
having them arrive. They complete their journey. They start a journey when they call. They complete their journey when they become a client. Then they're on the journey that they originally wanted to be, which is a whole new journey of therapy, right? The intake session is just the beginning,
Right.
but for the intake coordinators, it's the end. And I think as far as wasted time, there is a lag. If in a CRM, you can have an automated email go out the second someone fills out a form on your website.
Mm-hmm.
You can also send out an automated email the second you type their email into one little slot on a form, and it'll send them an automated email with the forms they need. So that lag can make all the difference. A lot of care coordinators are spending time trying to call back people who filled out a website form. They filled out a website form and they didn't receive any information for maybe until you get them on the phone, or until I come in the morning and copy and paste an email. So with the automated emails can go out, but also you can pop up templates and pull in information from existing fields to kind of make let's say your GFE email go out faster, or your appointment confirmation email, what have you.
You're still right that speed matters. It really does. Yeah. Yeah. So I have to say this, like maybe I'm all about words, right? So maybe instead of closing a deal, it could be we facilitated the transformation.
Oh, I love it.
Transformation
I love
facilitated.
it.
Ta-da.
Yes. Yes. Facilitated. I mean, I need more. I like facilitated.
Yeah.
We transformed this
I mean, it
prospect to a
is.
client.
It really is a
Yeah.
transformative process, right? And it is life-changing. So there should be better language. But in any case,
Because
move
I'm
the
truly not a
referral
fan of the word
along the
converted.
process. I know I'm not
Leave
either,
them
but
alone.
still, it feels like we're talking about a widget. Like, look, we converted this carburetor to turbo or something like that.
Yes.
Anywho,
Yes. I
anywho,
welcome this wordsmithing. I welcome the wordsmithing. Yes.
so there's a lot of inefficiencies in the average, let's say, intake process, and the benefits to automating and streamlining an intake process are huge, right? Obviously, more clients will come into the practice. People will get the transformations that they need faster. And the practice will also, of course, make more money and all the good things, right? So, like, this is a critical, probably one of the most critical aspects of any practice. I mean, aside from actually delivering good services. But on the front end, this is it. It's the lifeblood of any practice.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the, as they're, it's a, it's twofold because automating is going to help people wait for therapy for less time.
Hmm.
Like one of the biggest problems in the US is that the average wait list is like 6 to 8 weeks, like documented across
Right.
various cities, various demographics. So if there are automated elements of the process in the CRM, people will wait on wait lists for shorter amounts of time. You can sort way
Hmm.
better. And super big bonus, the client care coordinator saves herself time and frustration, as well as the practice owner may not need to expand their intake team as rapidly if there's more automation going on in the intake process. And then at the same time, I never would recommend automating everything. I'm not a fan of
Hmm.
automating just because we can. There
Hmm.
might be some information that you would want to give over the phone, and definitely information. So business wise, if you're going to tell somebody they have a giant deductible, maybe you'd like to tell them they have the deductible over the phone and talk about the other services you have at your practice or why this private pay therapist would be a great fit if they can do it, or maybe come in for a yoga class that we also offer or a group, rather than like an email with your giant deductible.
Right.
And
The human
there's
touch.
also those kinds of things, but especially they need to know that there is a person behind the automation, that there's someone
Hmm.
guiding them, because it's really an emotionally intelligent match that needs to be made, right?
That's so true. Yeah. We might have to do another podcast episode on how artificial intelligence is going to change or is changing the intake process. That's something I would love to talk to you about.
Ooh.
But I'm taking from what you're saying there, and I agree that the human touch is still important. And yeah, we shouldn't automate everything and those kind of things. But it does make me think also that this is probably one of the reasons why BetterHelp and Talkspace and these other companies are doing so well, because you can download an app and you can get a therapist in maybe not minutes, but certainly in hours and probably less than a day. You can get matched with a therapist. You can get an appointment with a therapist in a matter of hours. So, like, that's kind of what we're competing with in a sense, right? So, speed and efficiency, all these things are going to help.
I do know that. And I think that it speaks to that larger access issue. I think there,
Hmm.
from my perspective, which may not be the overall global statistic perspective, is like
Hmm.
it's the fact that there's so many people that need therapy and there's only a finite amount of therapists. But I know that a lot of therapists with brick and mortar, so to speak, like on the ground, in-person therapy centers or practices, are competing with BetterHelp and may have philosophies that they're going to be able to serve that client better because the relationship can be stronger rather than through an app. So I love that it's increased access. And I know that that first impression matters so much when people are calling around. So the phone call back is so important. And so if a therapist, if it can help you keep track of like who got a call back and who didn't, and I call them exactly six. I know a practice, one that works with us calls 7 times. They keep track of exactly, they keep track of exactly how many times. And sometimes it's an email, sometimes it's a text, sometimes it's a call, and it's tracked. So it's such a fascinating issue.
I heard one of my new friends, who's going to be on the podcast soon, is Brent Stutzman from Brand Your Practice. He's a great guy, and he has I can't remember his entire tagline, but part of it is the fortune is in the follow up. And when you were talking about the contact and the follow up, that makes me think of that.
Yeah.
But it matters because I think a lot of people, if not most people, are ambivalent about starting therapy, even when it's not because of a huge conflict in a marriage or a family or a other relationship or something like that. It's like it's hard to get yourself into therapy and admit that you need it and then reach out and get it. So I think most people are kind of ambivalent about it. So it's like if they try and it doesn't work, they can at least say, well, I tried therapy, but nobody called me back. But not if you call my practice, because we're going to follow up. We're going to do everything that we can to make that happen. So
yes, and it's sorry, one thing on that, it is so interesting, the spirit of the follow-up, right? So when you're doing follow-up, it's such a massive point. People could be it could be like they worked themselves up for 6 months to reach out to a therapist, and then they're completely ghosted. And, because the therapy practice didn't intentionally ghost them, but they just literally couldn't manage the number of inquiries coming in. And that person could be very demoralized. And when you finally do call them back, they don't want to pick up the phone, right? So it's different than when you follow up for a sales deal for like someone like, I saw an Instagram ad for your yoga studio. Now we're going to call them many times to come back to the yoga studio or buy this shake product. That's so different because the spirit of the follow-up is motivated in a traditional CRM sales sense by the commission for that salesperson. So how can we be sensitive as we're following up that we're trying to be ethical and emotionally intelligent about offering that care and encouraging. And maybe people call, they hang up if they don't get a call back from a therapist and they call 6 other on Google, right? So that speed really matters from a business sense too. There's like a statistic that if you don't call back in the first 5 minutes, if they don't get a response, text, email, call, the chance of them transforming into a client goes down by like 80% if you don't get back.
That's hard to hear. Yeah, it's true.
I know. So
interesting.
I love this business side and business and healthcare side is so interesting.
It really is. There's so many different ways I want to take the conversation, but I know we don't have forever. So I have to ask you this question. This is kind of totally off script, but do you have a strong opinion about the importance of live answer for an intake line?
Instantly, my instant answer, like my gut reaction is like, it's always better.
Right.
Like it's always better. So I don't have a strong opinion. Like it's something you shouldn't do. But from a strictly business perspective, from a business development perspective, if there is live answer, the chances of that person converting to a client, they just are much higher. They just are. Like it's not an opinion. But I think that a lot of people are reaching out through email, through text. I think there's all different ways, and that way they can get like a link or to forms, or maybe a link to a video with the client. Maybe there can be an instant text with I don't know about the HIPAA compliance, or if it's maybe it would have to not be perceived as solicitation in certain states, but just a friendly hello, we're glad you reached out, like GIF or video, that can go out if you don't have live answer. So that's kind of my off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you're right. It's not an opinion. Like if you get to that, if you respond to that person quicker, you're more likely to transform them into a client. I think the challenge that I've seen, and this is a whole nother conversation and podcast episode too, but the conversation is usually, I want live answer. I see the value, but it's too expensive for the business at this time. Or you hire somebody part-time and they can only do it sometimes, that kind of thing. I'm going to try and
Right. And do you
experiment.
want to trust that?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so many factors. I'm going to try and
So many
experiment. And
factors.
I do have an intake coordinator who could do this, but she also supports other practices. So it's not like she can just devote a day to my practice per se. But I'm going to clear a day in the near future and I'm going to just be available for calls all day long. And anybody that calls, I'm picking it up right away. And I'm going to just see out of all the calls that come in, how many of those become clients. Obviously, it's not one for one. There's reasons people can't be a client. They're not an ideal client for one reason or another, but I'm going to try that and see what happens.
Yeah, I will follow up with you if
Yeah.
you wouldn't mind sharing the results. That sounds really it sounds interesting. Yeah, cool. I want to hear about
I'll have to do a blog
how that
post on that
goes.
one. Yeah.
And it's
Sometimes,
also so random, right? It's so random.
mhm,
Who knows? Like the day that you're doing the phones, people could have particular needs versus the other day that
no, it's
you're doing
true.
the day you didn't do the phone. It's
There truly are
so
so many
it's so
variables. There are a lot.
there really are. And also it's like, are we doing well enough globally as like broadly as a practice? Do we need
Hmm.
live answer? Maybe
True.
you're full. Like, do you want live answer? Like, is it a priority across all? Maybe there's other clinical priorities that are more important than putting the budget towards someone to live answer. So I completely appreciate that.
It's a factor to consider. Yeah. And when people hire us to provide virtual assistant and virtual intake coordinator services, we always prioritize a quick response, but it's usually, within 15 minutes to 2 hours. That's usually our kind of turnaround time. So it's almost always
Super
faster than the
fast.
practice owner doing it themselves. So
Mhm.
that's really beneficial. And we've found that we can have really good conversion rates even without live answer. But of course, you add those layers of increased customer service and you're just going to do better. So it's a matter of like, I think using the tools and the team that you can afford as you grow and ramping those things up as you go along. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's super fast. If I reached out for therapy and someone called me within the first 5 hours of the day, I'd be like, wow, because
Yeah,
there's a lot of volume of calls. Yeah. So that's
definitely,
pretty fast.
definitely. So, I'm going to let you choose between these two questions. Like pick your favorite. Okay. How about this? Let's talk about either what data most practice owners are missing out on by not having a CRM, or what best practices can private practice owners borrow from other industries? Which one of those do you like? It's like a
Oh, I
game.
like them both, but I'm so passionate about the first one.
Yes. Let's talk about
I'm
data.
I'm passionate. Yeah, I really because I don't think we touched on it just yet. And data it's kind of like the reason for going through maybe the growing pains of adopting a CRM, like at your practice. Like data is the reason that once you follow certain best practices, it's kind of like the gold
Hmm.
for putting the effort in to switch to a CRM. So business intelligence, that is what practice owners are missing. So the business intelligence needed to scale their practice effectively is what's lacking if you don't have a CRM. So what I mean by that is a couple examples, like if you realize that 60 people inquired this month and 32 did not become clients or didn't make it to an intake session. If we can track with the CRM through reports, was it due to availability? Well, hey, maybe and then we can dig deeper. Oh, they were requesting Saturdays. Okay, it could be as easy as add a therapist to my team for Saturdays. Same goes for clinical needs. Are we turning away people for certain clinical needs? That can inform your hiring decisions, who you hire next. Or are we turning away so many people who are requesting this particular insurance panel? Well, maybe that's something in our next quarterly meeting we think about getting on that panel, because it can actually give them the CRM can give you the data on how many you lost out on, so to speak, for not having that insurance. So that's that business intelligence is a huge part. Another one is termination reason by therapist. This isn't like
Okay.
a one that anyone who's not a practice owner is like a fan of, but kind of knowing why, managing, I should have said retention first. So a CRM can help you track retention just because you have the data on the first time they reached out and how long they remained as a client. But then why are they terminating with each particular person on your team? And maybe there's some coaching opportunities for your clinical staff. So
Yeah.
those are
So there's a
two
lot of
examples.
options for data that you can pull out of a CRM and the metrics that you want to track. Maybe some more important to some people than others. But if you don't have a tool like this, you can still track the metrics, but they're harder to, it's like it takes longer and it's harder to pull that information from a spreadsheet or from other sources, isn't it?
Yeah, right. You can't, like, there's certain reports, if you're tracking all this data by hand, that you can then spend some time building in Google Sheets some graphs. But it's more instant, and with a CRM, and a CRM allows you to like drill down instantly. Like, okay, I didn't mention marketing, so we had 5 inquiries or 50 inquiries this month who just emailed us directly. Like, they just emailed us and said, are you taking new clients? Okay, who were those people? We can click on that part of the pie graph and instantly see a list of them. And then if you're noticing, wait, why does this data look off? You might be able to catch inefficiencies in your intake process quickly. If you're like, oh, my client care team was selecting that drop down item, and it was making us think that we had people inquired through Psychology Today when they really had inquired through, a different way. So you can catch sort of inefficiencies and use that to inform your marketing and hiring decisions too.
I like that. Yeah, I think this is not just a therapist thing, but it's probably like a human entrepreneur thing. But we often make emotionally driven decisions instead of data driven decisions. It's so easy to do that because we can't help but make our business personal. But it's much better when you can look at some numbers and some charts, not to be cold about it, but just to say, oh, look, what are we actually dealing with here? And what are the problems that we need to solve? Not just like, oh, it feels like things are not going well, because that's never going to get you to like actually like a good problem solving place.
Yeah, the numbers are so clarifying. As someone that did not study math or accounting,
Yeah.
and I do tend to be more emotionally when I evaluate something, I go on my gut. And when I look at numbers, it's so illuminating. Yeah, and I'm trying to think of even some more good examples. Maybe time, like how long did it take from the time someone inquired till the time they made it to an intake session? Some practice owners are just trying to know, do I need more staff now? Or like, how, based on the volume of inquiries, am I overloading my amazing intake coordinator who I adore and could not stand to lose? Should I get like them more support? So just kind of like looking at the numbers of the time this takes. Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick anecdote. So we just hired a new pre-licensed therapist who's starting in about 2 weeks. And I was trying to gauge how long it's going to take to fill up her caseload. And so I got in touch with my intake coordinator and I said, hey, can you look at the last 3 months and tell me how many inquiries we turned away due to lack of availability? Because the new person coming on is going to have a good amount of availability in the times that are most important. And so she came back and said it was like 21 people. And I said, well, that's a lot. So if we can even transform half of those folks, that would be amazing. So that was helpful. And it definitely helped me be more confident that yes, hiring a person now and bringing them on is a good idea because we have the sort of the lead flow or the referral flow to do that. So that was a recent example that I think fits our conversation.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also, it's different. It also speaks to the fact that you can get this data, like, your intake coordinator might know this data. You can quickly get it. It's at the moment that you want to, you're thinking about scaling and expanding is when you want to like go all in on a CRM. Like if you're,
Sure.
I don't know why I'm saying this for people that it may be overwhelming to
Mhm.
think about, adopting a new software tool. I want people to know that it's out there, that there's
Right.
like machines out there that can calculate these kind of things for you, and that they go hand in hand with best practices
Right.
and like training opportunities. And that's a perfect example of hiring.
Yeah, that was
Hiring
actually my next
information,
question.
business
Like if someone
intelligence. Yeah.
100%. If someone's listening to this and they're thinking like, well, I don't know, is this the right time? Should I take on this expense? I mean, clearly between you and I, we both believe that it's going to benefit any practice at any level, but it is a business expense. So they have to, figure that out and make sure it fits the budget because you don't want to put the work in and then have to like pull the plug a couple months later because it's not, not affordable or something like that. But what are the
Yeah.
sort of questions a person should ask themselves about like, is now the right time? Is this a good move for my practice?
Yeah, yeah. Number one is, are you growing your practice? I know
Hmm.
that probably 99% of your listeners are, but it's also if you're not growing a practice,
Sure.
you may not need a CRM. Like it may be a nice to have, or if things feel like you don't have a intake headache, you're not like overwhelmed with that. That's one reason. So that's a good question is, are we growing? So if we are growing, this is a yes. If you are in another, speaking of where you put your focus on your business, as you can only put your focus in so many places at once. If you're changing your EHR, for example, you're making another big change in your practice at the same
Hmm.
time, you probably wouldn't want to also make another I never recommend people make software changes simultaneously. So
Right.
that's just on a practical level. And then if you're if you're if there are if there's if you can think about what you would consolidate or things you can you can replace if you're logging into
Hmm.
many things at once. In For example, CRMs can send out email campaigns. If you want to cancel MailChimp, if you're using a different like task management, you may or may not want to still keep it. But I think a good thing to do is to demo a CRM and see like, what would this save me expense elsewhere, whether on administrative hours for client care team or on other
Hmm.
software that I'm using. That in
Yeah.
addition to wanting to grow.
So what I heard you say is ask yourself, is my intake process a hot mess? And if it feels like it's disorganized, or honestly, if your intake coordinator is like really stressed out all the time and they're like, I can't do this job, I might have to quit. You might need a
Yeah,
CR. That'd be kind of a
that's
funny
the
comedy
image.
bit, wouldn't it? Yeah, that'd be kind of fun to
Yeah.
make a little video on that to market PracticeAxis.
Yeah, it would. The big dumpster comes by with a fire coming out of
Right.
it. A dumpster fire. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
Is
my
your intake
goodness. I
coordinator
love it.
asking for ibuprofen every day because they have a headache? Is it an intake headache? Okay, I'm gonna stop there.
Uriah, you're good.
Having
You're
too
too
much
good at
fun.
this. You're too
Gonna
good at this.
have to start
I
an
may
ad
coach
agency.
you to help do it
Oh
as
my
they have
gosh.
to do ads. Yeah.
So much good stuff. Okay, so what I mean, people are listening to this and they probably want to see a visual. They want to kind of check it out, take a look. Can you tell people where to go to check out PracticeAxis and learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. PracticeAxis.com, and you'll find a link to book a demo. And just it's a quick and easy form. And then we will get you set up with a demo. So I also should clarify, it will in the title of your podcast, but it's a double entendre. It's not access. It's not ACCESS.
Hmm.
It's PracticeAxis, AXIS.com.
Perfect.
And I like
That's
to
great.
think of us as the x-axis is sales and business development, and the y-axis is healthcare, right? And we're like this line right in between, like on
Hmm.
a line graph right in between those things.
I like it. Well, thank you so much for everything that you do, and thanks for being on the podcast. It's always so fun to talk to you, and hopefully we can meet up in person sometime again in this year or next. That would be cool.
That would be this was a blast to talk to. Yeah. And I do hope we
Definitely.
can meet in person
All right.
sometime soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you so much.
That's it for today. Thanks so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and hit the subscribe button to make sure you never miss an episode. If you're looking for more personalized help, you can reach us through productivetherapist.com. Thanks so much for listening. We are Productive Therapist, and this is the podcast that helps therapists get more done and have more fun.